The crystal champagne flute trembled in my hand as I stared at the elaborate place settings around our family's mahogany dining table. Tonight wasn't just another lavish dinner party. It was my execution. I'm Pearl, and at 29, I was about to disappoint my family in the worst possible way. Leonard is a catch, darling, my mother whispered urgently, adjusting my designer dress sleeve. He's offering stability, connections, everything we've worked for. Don't mess this up. The man in question sat across from me, his expensive watch glinting as he raised his glass. At 58, Leonard was successful, wealthy, and completely wrong for me. But that didn't matter to my family. All they saw were dollar signs and social climbing opportunities. To new beginnings, Leonard announced, his practiced smile never reaching his eyes. Everyone clinked glasses while I fought the urge to bolt from the room. My younger brother Levi caught my eye from across the table, his expression sympathetic. He knew what was coming. We'd talked about it last week when I'd finally broken down and told him about Daniel. Pearl has been reviewing the merger proposal, my mother announced proudly. Haven't you, dear? I set down my glass. Actually, I need to say something. The room fell silent. Even the servants stopped their quiet movements around the table. I'm not going to marry Leonard, I said firmly. I'm seeing someone else, someone I actually love. My mother's face turned white. What did you just say? His name is Daniel. He's an inventor working on sustainable technology solutions. We've been dating for 6 months. Leonard's smile vanished. Vanessa, I thought this was settled. It is settled, my mother snapped. Pearl is just having a moment of cold feet. Aren't you, darling? No, Mother, I'm not having cold feet. I'm making a choice. My choice. My father slammed his hand on the table, making the silverware jump. Do you have any idea what you're throwing away? Leonard's company could secure our family's future for generations. I don't care about his company, I shot back. I care about living my own life, not the one you've scripted for me. That inventor of yours, my mother sneered. What can he offer? A cramped apartment and dreams? He offers me respect, love, the chance to build something meaningful together. Levi spoke up quietly. Maybe we should listen to what Pearl wants. Stay out of this, our mother barked. Leonard stood, straightening his tie. I think I should leave. Clearly there's been a misunderstanding. Leonard, please, my mother begged. She doesn't mean it. I do mean it, I insisted. I'm sorry if this embarrasses you, but I won't marry someone I don't love. My father's voice turned deadly quiet. Then you leave us no choice. Either you honor this arrangement, or you're no longer part of this family. The words hit like a physical blow, but I'd expected them. Still, hearing them out loud made my chest tight. You're choosing some penniless inventor over your family? My mother demanded. I stood slowly, my chair scraping against the hardwood floor. No, I'm choosing myself. If you walk out that door, my father warned, don't expect to come back. No more access to family funds, no connections, nothing. Levi half rose from his chair. Dad, this is crazy. Sit down, our father thundered. I looked around the table one last time, at the crystal, the silver, the artificial smiles and hollow promises. All of it suddenly seemed so meaningless. I'll have my things out by tomorrow, I said quietly. My mother's face crumpled. Pearl, please, think about what you're doing. I have thought about it. For the first time in my life, I'm thinking clearly. I walked to the door, my heels clicking on the marble floor. Behind me, I could hear my mother's soft sobs, Leonard's awkward attempts at comfort, my father's angry muttering. Just before I left, Levi caught up with me in the foyer. Pearl. Wait. I turned, fighting back tears. Here. He pressed a small key into my hand. To my apartment, in case you need somewhere to stay. I hugged him fiercely. Thank you. They'll come around, he whispered. They have to. But we both knew that wasn't true. The Santiagos never came around. They only moved forward, crushing whatever stood in their way. As I stepped out into the cool night air, my phone buzzed. A text from Daniel. How did it go? I took one last look at the mansion behind me, at the life I was leaving behind. Then I typed back, "I'm free. Coming to you now." My hands were steady as I got into my car. The trembling was gone, replaced by something stronger, certainty. I might have just lost my family, but I'd found myself. And that was worth more than all the arranged marriages and business mergers in the world. "You can't fit all these books in my spare room," Daniel laughed, watching me unpack my 10th box of architecture texts. "We'll need to get creative with storage." It had been 3 days since I'd walked out of my family's mansion. 3 days of ignored calls from my mother, stern emails from family lawyers, and a crushing silence from my father. "I can donate some," I offered, though the thought made my chest tight. These books represented years of study, dreams I wasn't ready to let go of yet. Daniel crossed the room and wrapped his arms around me from behind. "No way, we'll make space. Harrison's coming over later. He's great at solving puzzles like this." The mention of Daniel's older brother made me smile. Harrison had welcomed me without question, treating me like family from the moment we met. It was so different from what I'd grown up with. My phone buzzed, Ellie's face lighting up the screen. My best friend had been my rock through all of this. "Pearl, are you sitting down?" Her lawyer voice was in full effect. "What's wrong?" "They've frozen your accounts, all of them, even your personal savings." The room spun slightly. I gripped the edge of Daniel's desk. "They can't do that. That's my money. I earned it working at the firm." "Technically, the accounts were under your father's business umbrella. I'm looking for loopholes, but..." Daniel took one look at my face and guided me to sit on the bed. "What's happening?" "They're trying to starve me out," I whispered. "Make me come crawling back." "Like hell they are," he said firmly. "We'll figure this out." Ellie was still talking. "I've started the paperwork to establish your independent accounts, but Pearl, there's more. They're claiming you stole proprietary information before leaving." "What?" I shot to my feet. "I didn't take anything." "I know that, but they're building a case. They want to scare you." Daniel's face darkened. "This is harassment." "It's family," I corrected bitterly. "Santiago style." A knock at the door made us all jump. Harrison's voice called out, "Brought pizza and moving supplies." Daniel let him in while I finished my call with Ellie. Harrison took one look at my face and set down the pizza boxes. "Okay, what did they do now?" I explained the situation while Daniel paced the small apartment, his inventor's mind clearly working overtime. "They can't just take everything from you," Harrison said, his business acumen kicking in. "There have to be legal protections." "My family has very good lawyers," I said quietly, "and they're not above playing dirty." "Then we play smarter," Daniel suddenly announced. "Pearl, remember that sustainable housing project you showed me? The one your firm rejected?" I nodded. It had been my passion project, designs for affordable, eco-friendly homes that could revolutionize urban living. "What if we built it? Not just one building, but a whole new company. Your designs, my solar technology." Harrison's eyes lit up. "You know, with the right investors, and that could work. The market's hungry for green innovation." "I don't have any startup capital," I reminded them. "They made sure of that." "But you have us," Daniel said firmly. "And I've been saving everything from my patent royalties." My phone buzzed again, a text from Levi. "Mum's on the warpath. Dad's talking about legal action. Be careful." Harrison read the message over my shoulder and snorted. "They're scared. You're the golden child who got away, and now they're throwing everything they have at breaking you." "I won't break," I said, surprising myself with how steady my voice was. "I can't go back to being their puppet." Daniel pulled out his laptop. "Then let's build something they can't touch, something that's purely ours." For the next few hours, we spread papers across the floor, eating cold pizza while sketching out business plans. Harrison made calls to potential investors he knew. Daniel explained how his solar panel innovations could integrate with my housing designs. Around midnight, exhausted but hopeful, I stepped onto Daniel's small balcony for air. The city lights twinkled below, so different from the manicured view from my old bedroom. "Having second thoughts?" Daniel joined me, offering a cup of tea. "No," I said, realizing it was true. For the first time, I'm having first thoughts. My own thoughts. He smiled, that warm, genuine smile that had first drawn me to him. You know this won't be easy, right? We'll be starting from scratch. Good, I said firmly. Everything worthwhile I've ever had, I built myself. Why should this be different? My phone buzzed one last time. My mother. Don't throw away everything we've given you. Come home. We can fix this. I showed Daniel the message, then deleted it without responding. The old Pearl might have wavered, might have given in to keep the peace. But I wasn't that Pearl anymore. They'd tried to break me by taking everything away. Instead, they'd set me free. And I was going to build something so amazing they'd regret ever doubting me. Daniel squeezed my hand. Ready to change the world? I squeezed back. Ready to build our own? And these solar panels integrate directly into the building's facade. The investor leaned forward, studying our prototype designs. 6 months had passed since that night on Daniel's balcony, and we were finally getting traction. They're practically invisible, Daniel explained, pulling up the technical specifications. But they generate 40% more power than traditional panels, even in low-light conditions. I jumped in, pointing to my architectural renderings. The entire building works as a single ecosystem. Solar power, rainwater harvesting, vertical gardens. It's completely self-sustainable. The investor, Ms. Roberts, tapped her pen against her notepad. And you've tested this technology? We have a working prototype on our garage, Harrison chimed in. 3 months of data showing consistent results. The meeting room fell silent as Ms. Roberts reviewed our numbers. My heart pounded. This was our 5th investor pitch this month, and we desperately needed funding to scale up. It's ambitious, she finally said. Maybe too ambitious. My stomach dropped, but Daniel wasn't giving up. Come see it in action. We can demonstrate everything today. She checked her watch. I have another meeting in 2 hours. That's all we need, I promised. 20 minutes later, we were pulling up to our makeshift workshop, a converted garage Harrison had helped us lease. It wasn't much, but it was ours. Sorry about the mess, I apologized, leading Ms. Roberts past workbenches covered in blueprints and circuit boards. Mess means work gets done, she replied, surprising me with a smile. Show me what you've got. Daniel activated the prototype system, and the monitoring screens lit up. Watch this. For the next hour, we demonstrated every aspect of our integrated system. Ms. Roberts asked sharp questions, tested scenarios, and took detailed notes. The market potential is enormous, Harrison explained, while Daniel showed her the power generation data, especially with new environmental regulations coming. And your competition? She asked. I tensed, knowing what she meant. My family's real estate firm was still a major player in sustainable development, even if their approach was more about PR than actual innovation. We're offering something completely different, I said firmly. True sustainability, not just greenwashing. Ms. Roberts nodded slowly, then pulled out her phone. Cancel my next meeting, she told her assistant, and get me the paperwork for a Series A investment. Daniel grabbed my hand under the table as she named a figure that made my head spin. Under one condition, she added. I want this scaled up and ready to showcase at the Green Innovation Expo in 3 months. 3 months? Harrison whistled. That's tight. It's doable, Daniel said confidently. We've done the hard part. Now it's just about scaling. Then we have a deal? Ms. Roberts stood, extending her hand. I shook it firmly. Deal. After she left, the 3 of us stood in stunned silence before erupting into cheers. Daniel picked me up and spun me around while Harrison started calling contractors. We did it, I laughed, feeling lighter than I had in months. We actually did it. My phone buzzed, Ellie's name flashing on the screen. Please tell me that was good news about the investment, she said when I answered. Better than good. We're funded. How are things on your end? Your family's lawyers finally backed off on the theft accusations. They couldn't make anything stick. Of course they couldn't, I said, watching Daniel and Harrison argue playfully over expansion plans. Because we're building something completely new. Speaking of building, Ellie's voice turned serious. You should know your mother's firm just announced their own sustainable housing initiative. My celebration high-dimmed slightly. Let me guess. They're calling it revolutionary. They're calling it exactly what you proposed to them 2 years ago, except their version is all surface, no substance. I should have been angry, but instead I felt oddly calm. Let them try. We'll show them how it's really done. After hanging up, I joined Daniel and Harrison at the planning table. We need to think bigger, I announced. The expo isn't just about showing our technology. It's about showing everyone what's possible. You're thinking about your family's announcement? Harrison asked knowingly. I'm thinking about proving them wrong, I corrected. About everything. Daniel spread out fresh blueprints. Then let's make it impossible to ignore. Full-scale model unit, live demonstrations, the works. We worked late into the night, planning and dreaming. Around midnight, Harrison headed home, leaving Daniel and me surrounded by papers and possibilities. You okay? Daniel asked softly. With all of this? I looked around our workshop. At the prototype we'd built from scratch, the designs we'd refined together, the future we were creating. I'm better than okay, I said. For the first time, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. He kissed me softly. Then let's show the world what we can do. I glanced at my phone one last time before turning it off. There was a news alert about my mother's company, featuring her proud announcement of their groundbreaking sustainable initiative. Oh, Mother, I whispered. You have no idea what's coming. Turn on the business news now. Ellie's voice crackled through my phone speaker. I fumbled for the remote, nearly spilling my morning coffee. The headline scrolling across the screen made me freeze. Major real estate firm faces investor exodus over false green claims. Your mother's company is in free fall, Ellie explained. Their sustainable housing initiative? Complete smoke and mirrors. Someone leaked internal documents showing they were just painting regular buildings green and calling it eco-friendly. I sank onto the couch, watching footage of my mother leaving her office building, surrounded by reporters. She looked smaller somehow, her designer suit not quite as crisp as usual. Pearl? Daniel emerged from our home office, concern etched on his face. You need to see this email. He handed me his laptop. The message was from one of my mother's biggest clients, now requesting a meeting with us. They're jumping ship, I whispered. All of them. My phone buzzed again, Levi this time. Mum's losing it, he texted. Dad's talking about selling assets. It's bad, Pearl. Daniel sat beside me, his hand warm on my shoulder. What do you want to do? Before I could answer, Harrison burst through our door, not bothering to knock. Have you seen the stock price? They've lost 40% in 2 hours. I saw, I said quietly. This is our chance, Harrison continued, pacing excitedly. We can grab their market share while they're down. The timing couldn't be better with the expo next week. My phone lit up with another call, my mother's number. After a year of silence, seeing it now felt surreal. Don't answer it, Harrison warned. Let them sweat. But I was already hitting accept. Hello, Mother. Pearl. Her voice was strained, none of its usual commanding tone. We need to talk. Now you want to talk? After a year of legal threats and silence? Please. The words sounded foreign coming from her. Things are complicated. They're not complicated, Mother. They're exactly what I warned you about 2 years ago when you rejected my sustainable design proposals. Remember? You said they were unrealistic and bad for business. Daniel squeezed my shoulder supportively. That was a mistake, she admitted. We're paying for it now. Yes, you are. I took a deep breath. What do you want? Your father and I? We need your help. Your expertise. We can offer you a position. Stop, I cut her off. I'm not interested in a position at your company. Pearl, be reasonable. This is family. Family? I laughed bitterly. You disowned me. Remember, when I chose love over your arranged marriage plan. Harrison was frantically gesturing at me, pointing to his watch. We had a meeting with potential clients in 30 minutes. I have to go, I told my mother. I have a business to run. Wait, she started, but I ended the call. The room was silent for a moment before Harrison spoke. You know they're desperate when they start playing the family card. They're not playing. Levi's voice came from the doorway. None of us had heard him arrive. It's worse than the news is reporting. Mum's lost 3 major developments. Dad's talking about bankruptcy. I stood, needing to move. Why are you here, Levi? Because I'm caught in the middle, and I'm tired of it. He looked exhausted. They're our parents, Pearl. Despite everything. They stopped being my parents the night they gave me an ultimatum, I reminded him. And now they're facing their own ultimatum, he countered. Karma's funny that way. Daniel, who had been quietly observing, finally spoke. The expo's next week. Every major developer in the country will be there. Including what's left of your mother's company, Harrison added. I looked at the news footage still playing silently on the TV. My mother's face was a mask of controlled panic as reporters shouted questions about fraudulent environmental claims. Pearl, Levi pleaded, at least think about it. I have thought about it, I said slowly. For a whole year I've thought about what I'd do if they ever needed my help. And? Daniel asked softly. And I think it's time to show them exactly what they threw away. I turned to Harrison. Move up our expo presentation. I want the prime slot, right after my mother's damage control speech. Harrison grinned. Now that's the kind of revenge I can get behind. It's not about revenge, I corrected, though part of me knew that wasn't entirely true. It's about showing them a better way. Whether they take it or not is up to them. Levi looked torn. They won't like being publicly upstaged. They didn't like me choosing my own path either, I reminded him. But this time, they don't get a vote. I grabbed my laptop, pulling up our presentation files. We have work to do. Mother wants to talk about family. Fine. Let's show her what real family looks like, the kind that builds each other up instead of tearing each other down. Daniel smiled, that warm, supportive smile that had given me strength for the past year. Where do we start? We start, I said, determination filling me, by changing everything. The Green Innovation Expo Centre buzzed with activity as I stood backstage, watching my mother's presentation through the monitor. Her voice wavered slightly as she addressed the crowd. Our commitment to sustainable development remains unwavering, she claimed, though the audience's skeptical murmurs suggested otherwise. She's bombing, Harrison whispered, adjusting his tie. Half the investors are checking their phones. I smoothed my dress, fighting the urge to peek around the curtain. How long until our slot? 20 minutes, Daniel replied, double-checking our prototype's controls. Everything's ready. Ellie appeared, tablet in hand. You need to see this. Your mother's company just filed for emergency restructuring. Before I could respond, Levi slipped backstage. Pearl, there's something else. Leonard's here. What? I spun around. Why? He's buying up shares in Mom's company while they're down. I think he's planning a hostile takeover. The irony wasn't lost on me. The man my parents had wanted me to marry was now circling their company like a vulture. My mother's voice cracked on stage. And now I'd like to introduce our new initiative. Mrs. Santiago, a expo coordinator, approached. There's a problem with your demonstration model. I watched on the monitor as my mother's face paled. The sustainable house model they'd brought, their last-ditch effort to save face, wasn't working. The solar systems were offline, the water recycling display frozen. We need 15 minutes, her technical team pleaded. We don't have 15 minutes, the coordinator said firmly. Either demonstrate now or forfeit your slot. That's when my mother did something I'd never seen before. She froze. Pearl, Daniel touched my arm. This is your call. I looked at my team, Daniel with his brilliant innovations, Harrison with his business savvy, Ellie with her unwavering support, then at Levi, caught between loyalty and truth. Get our model ready, I decided. Now. What are you going to do? Levi asked. I was already walking toward the stage, something either very smart or very stupid. My heels clicked against the floor as I emerged into the spotlight. The audience stirred, recognizing me. My mother turned, her eyes widening. Ladies and gentlemen, I spoke into the microphone. I'm Pearl, former chief architect at Santiago Developments, and current CEO of Green Innovations. The room fell silent. My mother stands here promising you sustainable solutions, but instead of empty promises, let me show you what real innovation looks like. I gestured and Daniel activated our model. The massive screen behind us lit up with live data as our prototype house hummed to life. This isn't a concept or a PR stunt, I continued. This is functional, affordable, truly sustainable housing, and it's ready for production today. For the next 10 minutes, I walked the audience through every feature, every breakthrough. Daniel joined me, explaining the technical aspects while Harrison provided market projections. The audience was captivated. Investors who had been checking phones were now filming, taking notes, leaning forward in their seats. My mother stood to the side, watching. For the first time in my life, I saw something new in her expression. Respect. As we wrapped up, the questions came flooding in, but one voice cut through the chaos. Fascinating presentation? Leonard stood up. Would your company be interested in a partnership opportunity? I smiled, ready for this. Actually, we've already signed exclusive deals with 3 major developers, but I'm sure there are other opportunities out there. The message was clear. We didn't need his money anymore. As the audience broke into discussion groups, my mother approached the stage. Pearl. Not here, I said quietly. My office, tomorrow morning. She nodded, understanding the shift in power. What time? 9 a.m. Bring Dad and the company books. All of them. She hesitated, then asked, Why are you doing this? Because you taught me to never waste a good business opportunity, I replied. And because, despite everything, you're still family. As she walked away, Daniel joined me. You okay? Better than okay, I said, watching Leonard storm out while investors crowded around our display. We just changed the game. Harrison appeared with his phone. Orders are already coming in. We're going to need a bigger factory. Pearl, Levi called out. Mum's board members want to meet with you. I looked at my team, my real family, and felt a surge of pride. Tell them to get in line. We've got work to do. As we gathered our materials, I caught a glimpse of my reflection in the expo center's glass walls. I barely recognized the confident businesswoman staring back at me. Ready to go build an empire? Daniel asked, taking my hand. I squeezed his hand, thinking of tomorrow's meeting. No, ready to rebuild one, the right way this time. The expo lights dimmed, but our future never looked brighter. Sometimes the sweetest victory isn't in destroying your opponents, but in becoming everything they said you couldn't be. 9 o'clock sharp, and my parents sat across from me in our sleek conference room. The stack of company books between us told a story of desperation they'd never admit out loud. Nice offices, my father commented stiffly, looking around at our modern workspace. Very progressive. We like it, I replied, watching Daniel set up his laptop for the presentation. Harrison sat beside me, reviewing the numbers one last time. My mother hadn't said a word since arriving. Her usual perfect makeup couldn't hide the dark circles under her eyes. Let's get started, I said, opening the first folder. Your company's bleeding money. We're aware of our current challenges, my father bristled. Challenges? Harrison raised an eyebrow. You're 3 months from complete collapse. We didn't come here to be lectured by... My father started, but my mother cut him off. Robert, please, her voice cracked. Let them speak. I pulled up their financial projections. Your sustainable housing initiative was doomed from the start. You tried to fake innovation instead of actually innovating. We had shareholders to answer to, my father defended. And now those shareholders are jumping ship, I countered. Leonard's buying them out one by one. My mother flinched at Leonard's name. We understand our position. What's your proposal? Daniel stepped forward, pulling up our company's specs. A full merger, your construction expertise combined with our technology. Absolutely not, my father stood up. We built this company from nothing. We're not just handing it over to... To what, Dad? I interrupted. To your daughter? The one you threw away because she wouldn't marry for money? The room fell silent. Even Harrison looked uncomfortable. You're not in a position to negotiate, I continued softly. Leonard will take everything if you don't act now. At least with us, the company stays in the family. Family? My father laughed bitterly. You walked away from family. No. I stood to face him. You pushed me away. And look where that got us. My mother reached for the technical specifications, her hands trembling slightly. These numbers, they're remarkable. They're real, Daniel confirmed, unlike your Green Initiative claims. Margaret, my father warned, but she ignored him. How soon could we implement these systems? She asked. Mom! Robert, stop! She finally looked up, tears in her eyes. Our daughter built something amazing while we were too proud to see it, and now she's offering to save us. With conditions, Harrison added, sliding over a contract. My father snatched it up, his face reddening as he read. You want controlling interest, and to restructure the board? Yes, I said simply, because I won't let you destroy this company twice. You don't trust us, my mother realized. Would you, after everything? Levi chose that moment to walk in, carrying fresh coffee. The tension in the room hit him like a wall. How bad is it? He asked, looking between our parents. Your sister wants to take over, our father spat. No, I corrected. I want to save what's left, but only if you step back and let me do it right. The shareholders' meeting is tomorrow, Harrison reminded everyone. Leonard will make his move then. My mother reached for the contract. If we agree, what happens to the existing staff? We keep anyone who's willing to adapt, I assured her. This isn't about revenge, Mom. It's about building something better. Better than what we built? My father challenged. Better than what we could have built together, if you'd listened to me 2 years ago. Daniel pulled up the expo presentation footage. Watch this. Really watch it. For the next few minutes, my parents saw what the rest of the world had seen. True innovation, real sustainability, actual progress. This could save the company, my mother whispered. It will save the company, I corrected. But only if you both step down. My father opened his mouth to argue, but my mother grabbed his hand. Robert, look at her. Really look. She's not our little girl anymore. She's the CEO we always wanted her to be. Just not the way you planned, I added softly. The room fell quiet again, but this time it felt different, like something was shifting. Finally, my father picked up a pen. You'll keep the company name? No, I said firmly. We build under our brand, but we'll honor the legacy by doing it right. He nodded slowly, then signed. My mother followed suit, her signature steadier than I expected. Welcome to Green Innovations, Daniel said, without a trace of irony. As Harrison gathered the paperwork, my mother stood and did something unexpected. She hugged me. I'm sorry, she whispered, for everything. I hugged her back, feeling the years of tension start to crack. I know. My father remained seated, still processing. But when Levi brought him coffee, I saw him smile slightly. You did good, kid, he admitted quietly. Better than we did. It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet. But it was a start. And this time, we'd build on a foundation of truth instead of expectations. The shareholders' meeting buzzed with tension as Leonard strode to the podium, his confidence radiating through his expensive suit. He had no idea what was coming. Ladies and gentlemen, he began, I stand before you with a solution to our company's current difficulties. I sat between my parents in the front row, watching him lay out his hostile takeover plan. Daniel squeezed my hand while Harrison smirked beside us. My offer represents the best path forward, Leonard continued. A clean break from recent, unfortunate decisions. My mother stiffened beside me. I touched her arm gently, a gesture that would have been unthinkable just days ago. Are there any other proposals before we vote? The board chairman asked. Actually, I stood up, smoothing my blazer. There are. Leonard's smile faltered as I walked to the podium. Recognition flickered across his face, followed by something darker. Pearl, he said through gritted teeth. What an unexpected surprise. Not really, I replied, taking control of the presentation screen. Green Innovations has already acquired controlling interest in this company. The room erupted in murmurs. Leonard's face reddened. That's impossible. The family wouldn't. The family did. My father stood up. As of yesterday, we've merged with Green Innovations under their leadership. Leonard turned to his lawyers, who were frantically flipping through papers. This isn't legal. The board hasn't approved. Check again, Harrison called out, waving a document. Emergency board meeting yesterday afternoon. All very legal, all very binding. I pulled up our new company structure on the screen. Shareholders will be pleased to know their stock value has already increased 12% since the merger announcement. Because of my bid, Leonard protested. No, I corrected, showing the market analysis. Because we've already secured contracts with 3 major developers who believe in actual sustainable innovation, not empty promises. The shareholders were paying attention now, calculators and phones out as they ran the numbers. This is absurd, Leonard sputtered. You're going to trust the company to the woman you tried to buy, I finished for him. No, they're trusting it to the CEO who just saved their investments. Daniel stepped forward with our prototype demonstrations. For the next 20 minutes, we showed the shareholders exactly what their money would build. Real innovation, real progress, real profits. The vote is simple, I concluded. Stay with us and be part of something revolutionary, or sell your shares to a man who represents everything wrong with old-school business. Leonard made one last attempt. This is emotional manipulation. She's using family drama to what? My mother suddenly spoke up. To build something better than we ever did. Yes, she is. The vote wasn't even close. Leonard stormed out before they finished counting, his takeover dreams crumbling behind him. As the shareholders filed out, many stopping to shake my hand, my father approached the podium. Pearl, he said quietly, I need to say something. Dad, we don't have to. Yes, we do. He took a deep breath. I was wrong. About everything. About you, about Daniel, about what makes a company strong. My mother joined us, her eyes wet. We both were. The past is past, I said firmly. We focus on the future now. Speaking of the future, Daniel called out, holding up his tablet. The first development site just got approved. We break ground next month. Harrison was already making calls. Media wants interviews. Everyone's talking about the merger. They're talking about more than that, Ellie appeared, showing us her phone. Leonard's other investments are taking hits. Turns out people don't like failed hostile takeovers. I looked around at my team, my family, both old and new, and felt something settle into place. Let's get to work, I announced. We have a company to rebuild. My father cleared his throat. About that. Your mother and I have been thinking. The old office building. It's not very sustainable. Not at all, my mother agreed. Perhaps it's time for a new headquarters, something that showcases what we can really do? Daniel's eyes lit up. I have some ideas about that. I bet you do, I laughed, then turned serious. But first, we do this right. Full transparency, real innovation, no shortcuts. Wouldn't have it any other way, Harrison said, already pulling up potential locations. As we left the meeting room, I caught my reflection in the window. The woman staring back wasn't just a CEO or a daughter or someone's almost bride. She was herself, strong, capable, and finally, completely free. Ready to build something amazing? Daniel asked, falling into step beside me. I looked at my parents, now deep in discussion with Harrison about sustainable office designs. At Ellie, already drafting press releases. At Levi, grinning as he took down the old company logo. No, I smiled, ready to build everything. The future stretched out before us, bright and clear and entirely our own. Sometimes the sweetest revenge isn't about getting even. It's about getting better. And now, cutting the ribbon for our first sustainable community development, the mayor's voice boomed across the gathered crowd as I stood beside Daniel, holding the oversized scissors. Together, he whispered. Together, I agreed, and we cut the red ribbon to thunderous applause. Behind us stood the first of many, a beautiful residential complex that merged my architectural vision with Daniel's innovative technology. Solar glass sparkled in the morning sun, vertical gardens cascaded down the walls, and happy families waited to move into their new homes. "This is what real change looks like," Harrison announced to the reporters. "Affordable, sustainable living for everyone, not just the wealthy." I caught sight of Leonard in the crowd, looking decidedly less polished than the last time I'd seen him. His failed takeover attempt had cost him more than money. His reputation had taken a hit, too. "Pearl!" Levi called out, waving me over to where he stood with our parents. Mum was crying, but for once they were happy tears. "It's beautiful," she said, touching the living wall. "Even better than your original designs." "Because this time, I had the right support," I replied, watching Daniel demonstrate the solar systems to a group of excited residents. My father cleared his throat. "About that, I have something to show you." He led us to a bench in the complex's central garden. "I found this while cleaning out my office." It was my original proposal from 2 years ago, the one they'd rejected. The pages were worn, covered in new notes in my father's handwriting. "You kept it?" I asked, surprised. "I read it every day after you left," he admitted, trying to understand where I went wrong. "Robert," my mother chided gently, "we both know where we went wrong. We valued the wrong things." Ellie appeared with a tablet. "Sorry to interrupt, but you need to see these numbers. Pre-orders for the next development are through the roof." "Not surprising," Harrison joined us. "After Leonard's company announced bankruptcy this morning." I looked up sharply. "What?" "Karma's funny that way," Levi grinned. "His investors pulled out after our success. Turns out people prefer real innovation to empty promises." A young family walked past, their children pointing excitedly at the rooftop playground. Their joy felt like validation. This was why we'd built this place. "Pearl," Daniel called out, "the residents want to thank you." I walked over to where several families had gathered. A woman stepped forward, holding her daughter's hand. "We never thought we'd be able to afford a home like this," she said. "You've given us a future." Her words hit me hard. This wasn't about beating Leonard or proving my parents wrong anymore. It was about changing lives. "Speaking of futures," Daniel whispered in my ear, "there's something I need to ask you." He led me to the rooftop garden, our favourite spot during construction. The city sprawled below us, and in the distance I could see the construction sites of our next projects. "Remember when we met?" he asked. "You said you wanted to build something meaningful." "I remember." He pulled out a small box. "I think we've done that, but I was hoping we could build something else together." My heart stopped as he opened the box, revealing a simple but elegant ring. "Is that—" I started. "Not a business merger," he smiled. "Just love." Before I could answer, applause erupted behind us. Our families, both old and new, had followed us up. "About time," Harrison called out. "Well," my mother prompted, and I realized she'd known about this. I turned back to Daniel. "Yes," I said simply. "Yes to everything." As he slipped the ring on my finger, I caught sight of our reflection in the solar glass. Not a power couple, but a partnership. Equal, supportive, real. "I have one condition, though," I said. Daniel raised an eyebrow. "What's that?" "We get married here, in the garden we built." "Perfect," my mother wiped away tears. "A new beginning in a new place." My father hugged me, really hugged me, for the first time in years. "We're proud of you, Pearl, not because of the company's success, but because of who you've become." Looking around at our gathered family, Harrison already planning the wedding logistics, Ellie and Levi arguing about colour schemes, my parents finally embracing the future instead of clinging to the past, I felt complete. "Ready to start our next project?" Daniel asked, taking my hand. Below us, families were moving into their new homes. Across the city, our other developments were rising, and here, in this garden we'd built from dreams and determination, our future was just beginning. "Always," I smiled, "but this time we're already home." The sun set behind us, painting the solar glass in shades of gold. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even or proving others wrong. Sometimes it's about building something so beautiful, so right, that it makes the past fade away like shadows at dawn.